Okay, so let's have a look at problem 494, target sum. For this problem and in this video, we're going to share a method called dictionary and check method. So first, I'll go through the statement of the problem, and then we will explain the idea and the procedure to gain intuition. And finally, we share the code and test the generic cases. First, let's look at the statement of the problem. So we are given an integer array called nums and an integer called target. So we want to build an expression out of nums by adding plus or minus sign before each integer in nums, and then evaluate the final result of the expression. So we are required to return the number of different expressions that we can make and the expressions evaluate to target. So in example 1, the nums array is very special. All the elements are equal and the target is 3. So the output is 5. So there are 5 ways to assign symbols. In other words, putting positive or negative in front of each number to get this target 3. Example 2 is easy to analyze because nums has one element 1 and target is also 1, so we can only put a positive sign in front of 1 to get this result. So the output is 1. So the constraint for this problem is that the length of the array is bounded above by 20. Also, the elements range is also bounded by 1000. The sum of the array is bounded by 1000, and target has a absolute value that is bounded by 1000. So that's the main constraint. So with that said, let's look at the method we're going to use here. The method is called dictionary and check method. So essentially, this method following the same line of idea like Leetcode 560. So you are encouraged to have a look at that corresponding video. So here the idea and the procedure is as follows. So we initialize a dictionary, let's call it values sin. Basically, this dictionary stores the numbers we can make so far and their corresponding frequency. And then when we do the linear scan of the nums array, at each index I, we're going to check the frequency of the new numbers we can make by choosing plus or minus of the current number. So if we choose plus, we're going to make y plus nums I. If we're choosing minus, we're going to make a number y minus nums I. So lastly, once we finish the scan, we're going to return the frequency of target. So that's the whole idea. So let's look at one simple example to fix the idea. For example, in example 1, so we have target 3. So when we examine the first element 1, so the dictionary is 0, 1, meaning 0 appears once. So then from this 0, if we add 1, so we are going to make a 1, so 1 appears once. If we are going to minus 1, we're going to have negative 1, so negative 1 appears once. Then when we look at second one in step 1, when we enter the step 1, so 1 appears once and negative 1 appears once. So then if we examine current one, if we use plus 1, so 1 plus 1 gives a 2, so 2 appears once, and negative 1 plus 1 we get 0, so 0 appears once. Then if we choose negative 1, so 1 minus 1 equals 0, so 0 appears once now again. So then if we choose negative 1, we get negative 2, so it appears once. So overall, so 1 appears, 2 appears once, and 0 appears 1 plus 1 twice, and negative 1 minus negative 1 is negative 2 appears once. So that's the result. So we continue update like this, and finally we get this dictionary. And the frequency we are required to return is the frequency of 3, that is 5. So that's the main idea and this procedure. So with that said, I guess we are ready to write the code. Before we do that, so here is a challenge. So can you make a connection of the current problem with the standard 0-1 knapsack problem? So if we can make such a connection, then we can have another solution just using the standard DP. So with that said, let's look at the code here. So first, I'm going to initialize a values sin dictionary. So we initialize with 0 with frequency 1. So here again, this is the values we have seen and their frequency. So then we are going to iterate the nums array. So for num, for num in nums. So then we're going to initialize a temporary variable called step, which is used to reset the state of values sin dictionary after we traverse the current dictionary. So for y in values sin, we're going to make new numbers starting from this y, right? So if we choose add nums, we're going to make y plus nums, right? Let's update its frequency. Step y plus nums. So it's going to be the frequency of values sin, the y, plus. So if we have already made y plus nums in the step dictionary, so that is step get. So basically y plus num 0. So this function means if we haven't made y plus num, we're going to add 0. If we have made y plus num, so we're going to add that frequency, like in here, right? So for 0 is 1 plus 1. We cannot just use the frequencies in values sim. So similarly, we can make numbers y minus num by choosing negative sign in front of num. So we have y minus num. So here we change to be y minus num. So with that said, we finish the traversal of the dictionary, and then we are going to update the state of values sin. So to be a step. So this step means after we look at the current num, we can make such a different numbers in the step dictionary. Then we update the state of the value sim. So once we finish traverse the nums array, we're ready to make the return. So we're going to return values sin, the frequency of target. So get target 0. So here get again, if the target is made, so we can get that frequency, otherwise we return 0. So that's the main code. So with that said, let's first test the code and then emphasize this point again here. So yeah, it passes the generic case, but now I guess it's good to have a understanding for this part. So basically, if we think, so we made y plus num. So the y plus num should have a frequency same as y in the values sin dictionary. Similarly for here, so we can mistakenly write this frequency equals values sin y without the add part in both the two expressions. So here the step 1, when we enter step 1, we have such state. But then if you consider 0, so if you do not add the plus sign, we are going to get only 1. So because 1 minus 1 will get 1. So, and negative 1 plus 1, we're going to get 0. The frequency is also 1. But we should add these two frequencies together. So this is a very subtle point for this solution. So here, just make it a star. So make it a star, indicating that it's very important. So with that said, I would say you are encouraged to have a look at problem 560 and also try to write a code using the 01 knapsack problem. So that's about it. Thank you very much.